Because
okay, and I'm not going to be lectured by some white man who has no idea what he's talking about.
I still can't believe this actually aired on live TV. And nobody really noticed how insane it was? We're going to break down one of the craziest woke meltdowns to ever air on live TV from a recent CNN interview, and so much more on today's episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast, my daily show where I take on the craziest ideas from across the internet and across our politics from an independent perspective. So the clip we have to break down is from Out Front with Erin Burnett, where she had a panel and they were discussing some of Trump's recent controversial comments about immigration. We'll get into the full meltdown and all of that, where one of the guests came absolutely unhinged. But first, here's the context that Erin Burnett set up to set the stage for this panel discussion.
New tonight, Donald Trump linking undocumented immigrants to murderers, saying they have bad genes.
She has no clue. How about allowing people to come through an open border, 13,000 of which were murderers? Many of them murdered far more than one person, and they're now happily living in the United States. You know, now a murderer, I believe this, it's in their genes, and we got a lot of bad genes in our country right now.
As our fact checker Daniel Dale has pointed out, the 13,000 number includes murderers who came in while Trump was a president. Some of them are also in prison still. It also includes people who came in, murderers, as other former presidents were in the office, including Obama and Bush. So Obama, Bush, Trump, Biden, all of it. And context does matter.
Now, I thought this was pretty biased and misleading framing, because when Donald Trump was talking about bad genes, he was very specifically talking about murderers, illegal immigrants who've come to this country and committed murder. He wasn't talking about all immigrants broadly or even all illegal immigrants. So I thought the way that Erin Burnett framed this at the beginning, saying Trump tied murderers to immigration, I thought that was misleading because it's not really what he was talking about. He was talking about the people who literally are murderers, who were convicted of murder. However, she did have a point that the 13,000 figure that you've heard Trump and a lot of other Republicans cite is misleading. They cite this figure where ICE says that 13,000 illegal immigrants who have been convicted of murder are currently non-detained, which makes it sound like they're roaming free in the US. But by non-detained, they actually mean non-detained by ICE. So if they're in prison, federal or state prison, for that murder, they'd still be counted in that figure. So while there are certainly some murderers free in the United States who came here illegally, the 13,000 figure doesn't represent that accurately. I'll put a link in the show notes to a breakdown of that data and why it's kind of misleading in case you're interested. So now we got to get to the first part of the panel that got, frankly, hysterical when Erin Burnett brought in her panelists, Democratic strategist Aisha Mills and Republican strategist David Urban. She turned to Aisha for her take on Trump's recent comments, and Aisha immediately invoked Hitler. Let's take a listen.
Aisha Mills and David Urban are both out front now. So Aisha, let me just begin with you, with your reactions to what Donald Trump has just said today about the murderers coming into the country and genes.
Listen, this isn't the first time we've heard this kind of talk from Donald Trump, and it reeks of authoritarianism. And it also harkens back to a time of Hitler, who used the same exact language that Donald Trump is now quoting to talk about the people who he thinks are poisoning the blood of the nation. You know, all of this smells like an affinity towards eugenics, which really should give us all pause. Because when we remember the last person, the last awful authoritarian dictator who believed in eugenics, it was someone who really wanted to exterminate an entire people because they thought that they didn't have good genes and because they were trying to create a certain type of race. Donald Trump has himself said that his parents, his father, raised him to believe that they were superior to others because they had good genes. Now, what does that mean? The way he's talking about it is he wants to purge the immigrants, right? He wants to get rid of all of the immigrants and has said that he would do some pretty nasty, harmful things to them because they don't have good genes. I don't think that this is just rhetoric. I think that we need to take this seriously and understand where his inspiration comes from. And today, of all days, it is just really savage that this is who he's quoting and that he's quoting Hitler.
Y'all, this is so exhausting. This level of hyperbole and exaggeration. I mean, is it really Hitler-esque to suggest that murderers might have bad genes? That comment about bad genes was very clearly, if you listen to it in context, speaking about the convicted murderers, not all immigrants or all illegal immigrants. And look, I don't know enough to say how much science is there really about whether there's a genetic component. Obviously, I don't think there's one gene that makes you a murderer, but there are genetic predispositions towards violent crime and psychopathy and other things. I can't really speak to that. Maybe what Trump is saying isn't accurate or is overly simplistic or reductive. Sure, we could have that conversation, but it's not Hitler-esque, and you just sound ridiculous and unhinged when you immediately take things to just the nth degree and go full Hitler in your response. In the same way, when Trump talks about illegal immigration poisoning the blood of America, he is talking about fentanyl overdoses and the drug crisis. Now, I would not use that rhetoric. I think when Trump talks about immigration, he often uses rhetoric that is way too extreme and inflammatory for me. But to say that he's suggesting immigrants are tainting our gene pool and blood by coming here is just not an accurate or fair or good faith interpretation of his actual comments, which, to be fair to his critics, he's not always the most coherent in the way that he says these things. But yeah, they're clearly just taking the most extreme possible interpretation of what he had to say here and then immediately taking it to 100 and comparing him to Hitler. Even though nobody is talking about exterminating anyone, babe. You just sound unhinged. Trump wants to deport all illegal immigrants who are here in this country. I'm much more of a softie on immigration. I want a secure border, maybe a border wall, and I would deport any illegal immigrant who's committing crimes here beyond just illegally immigrating or who's, abusing welfare or anything like that. But I would probably give some form of legal status to most of the people who are just here peacefully working and have kids who are U.S. citizens and all that. I'm a softie, right? I don't agree with many of his immigration positions, but he's not talking about exterminating anyone. You're just out of touch with reality. He's talking about deporting people, which means sending them out of this country back to the country they came from. And that is something that basically every country does. And until 5 minutes ago, the idea of deporting illegal immigrants wasn't controversial. You can go back to Barack Obama or Bill Clinton or all these people not that long ago, and the Democratic Party firmly supported deporting illegal migrants. It wasn't and isn't some Hitler-esque extermination plan. You just are totally detached from reality. I mean, look, there are tons of legitimate critiques and debates to be had about immigration and Trump's immigration policies, but when critics go this hysterical and this unhinged, they discredit their own side of the argument and they turn the entire conversation into just a clown show. And what's crazy, guys, is we haven't even gotten to the meltdown yet. That's still coming. That's in this next clip when David Urban tries to reply and Aisha Mills, the Democratic guest, simply loses her mind. And it's really a sight to behold. Take a look.
And he's talking about the people who murdered Americans, not eugenics, not some made up BS, Aisha. So listen, I'm sorry that Donald Trump feels like standing up for people who may have been murdered by immigrants and want to deport illegal immigrants who are here, criminal, violent aliens, and want to kick them out of our country to protect Americans. But that's okay in my case. He's not talking about eugenics. He's not going to compare him with Adolf Hitler today. I find it particularly offensive.
Listen, we can fact check, this all day long. David's hot air is not going to rewrite the history of the words that Donald Trump himself has used. This is fact. He has
read the words he said today.
About genetics. Well, I'm talking about the history of everything he's ever said. So you can
We're not talking about the history.
Short-term memory, David, for the sake of going into an election and doing Donald Trump's bidding. But this, as an American,
let's talk about Kamala
makes
Harris.
Me really concerned.
Let's talk about Kamala Harris
as
short-term
a black lesbian who Donald Trump doesn't believe has genes as good as his. Is he going to attempt to exterminate me
why do you
when
believe
he gets
that,
elected? Because he's damn near said it. That's why, David. That's why.
Because he's
okay, and I'm not going to be lectured by some white man who has no idea what he's talking about and is trying to rewrite history here.
Aisha,
I am
shame
afraid,
on you, Aisha.
as an American, of a Donald Trump presidency, and his actual quotes
shame
are
on
why.
You, Aisha.
Because I take him seriously, and I think that he believes what he says, and that is why he is a danger and a threat to America.
Guys, that has to be one of the most unhinged things I've ever seen on TV. And that's saying something. I mean, as a black lesbian, anytime somebody starts a sentence with that kind of identity qualifier, 99% chance they're about to say something dumb and they don't have a real argument. And look, criticize Trump all you want, but the idea that he wants to exterminate black lesbians has no basis in reality, babe. He was already president once, and I must have missed that part where he did that. And then she goes, well, he's damn near said it. And I mean, damn near is doing a lot of work in that sentence because he's never come close to saying anything like that. And then when the Republican guest asks her, so when did he say that? Come on, back up your crazy statement. Her response is not to, provide receipts or evidence. Well, he said that at a rally on July 16th, 2023. Like, nope, there's no evidence or receipts. She says, shut up, white man. You've got to be kidding me. She's actually saying, you're wrong, and I'm not going to listen to you because of your race and your sex. Yet she's the woke and progressive one on the panel. The math here is just not mathing. I mean, this isn't an argument. This is anti-logic. What he said isn't more or less true because of his skin pigment. If a black Republican woman, of which there are quite a few, sat there and said the exact same argument, it wouldn't somehow be more or less accurate or correct or logical or true. That's not how logic works. That's not how argument works. But the woke worldview actually breaks people's brains to this degree where they think that citing people's identity is a substitute for explaining why they're wrong. And guys, come with me for a minute and just imagine that the opposite situation had played out. Imagine that they'd been arguing about Trump and immigration, and David Urban had said, I'm not going to be lectured by some ignorant black woman. Ooh, boy, would that have gone poorly for him. And honestly, rightfully so. I can promise you right now that he would be blacklisted from CNN for life. And he would honestly, even on the Republican side of politics, probably face very severe career consequences, potentially career-ending consequences for making just an obviously dismissive and racist and ignorant statement and attacking someone so openly because of their race and gender. He would go absolutely viral, and most people would denounce him as racist and a jerk. And of course, if he actually did do that, it'd be totally wrong and he would deserve criticism. But the double standard here is insane. She can go on this unhinged rant and scream at somebody to shut up because they're a white man, and basically nobody noticed outside of a few folks in right-wing media. And she's not going to get canceled or banned from CNN or face any sort of consequences. It is perfectly fine and acceptable to dismiss people because they're white or male now, in progressive circles in American politics. And that is really sad and detestable stuff. Either racism and sexism are wrong all the time, or they're not. But you can't have it sometimes maybe one way but not the other, at least not if your hope is to retain even a shred of credibility. I was very disappointed to see this unhinged woke meltdown go unchallenged on CNN, but unfortunately, I can't say I was particularly surprised. Were you? Let me know in the comments. Remember, I do read the comments and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. Plus, if you leave your comment with a super chat or a super thanks, I'll definitely answer your question or respond to your comment on the next show. And do hit that like button to reward my suffering through this insanity. Up next, the Weather Channel brought in star meteorologist Kamala Harris to discuss the ongoing hurricane in Florida. We're going to take a listen, and I'm going to explain why she got something really quite wrong in her remarks.
Helene. Finally, as the president mentioned, to any company or individual that might use this crisis to exploit people who are desperate for help through illegal fraud or price gouging, whether it be at the gas pump, the airport, or the hotel counter, know that we are monitoring these behaviors and the situation on the ground very closely, and anyone taking advantage of consumers will be held accountable.
So I couldn't quite tell from her remarks whether she knows this or not, but Florida already has what are known as anti-price gouging laws on the books that make it illegal to charge excessive prices and punish companies with fines if they do so during an emergency. Kamala clearly supports this. She's doubling down on it. She's warning companies not to do this evil, greedy, nasty thing. And I'm sorry, this is one of those areas where basic economics just conflicts with what feels good emotionally. Because obviously, when we think about the prospect of companies jacking up prices during a disaster, when people are kind of desperate, that feels icky. That feels bad. And I understand that sentiment. I really do. But emotions aren't a good substitute for Econ 101. And in reality, in practice, price gouging laws are really harmful and counterproductive. It's actually important that prices be allowed to be raised significantly during emergencies, because it's one of the only mechanisms we have to ensure adequate rationing, that only the people that really need the thing actually go and get it. As the economist Ryan Bourne pointed out on Twitter, he's hearing that those in Tampa area gas stations have obeyed anti-price gouging laws and kept their prices low despite demand surging. Unfortunately, there's now no gas for those who urgently need enough just to get outside the hurricane path. Let me explain why this might be. Basically, if, say that during the emergency, they raise the price of gas to $6 a gallon, only the people who really need gas are going to go pay that. People who just are kind of nervous, they've got half a tank, but I'll go fill it up just because there might not be gas for a while, but they already have enough to get out of the range of the hurricane. They would still go if it's still $3, but if it gets increased to drastic levels, they will ration accordingly. And only the people that need it the most will go out and get it. That's actually good and important and must be allowed to happen, or you end up with shortages and people running out because people are consuming something that aren't the ones that actually need it. People will end up trapped where there's no gas because everyone bought it because it stayed at a somewhat normal price and everyone just panics before a disaster. The people who actually have an empty tank and can't get out because of the hurricane are out of luck, all because these politicians wanted to write laws that sound good and didn't think through the economic consequences. The other key Econ 101 reason that price gouging laws are counterproductive is that those high prices encourage people to increase the supply. Oh, wow, they're selling $6 a gallon gas. We got to get some extra gas down there ASAP to cash in on that. You're going to have an increased supply quicker. You're going to have an increased disaster response time, and companies will be incentivized to keep more stores and more inventory in places that are prone to hurricanes and prone to disasters because they can cash in. All of this has a basic resource management function that is disrupted when the government tries to play morality police and stop companies from charging high prices when demand is high. It might not feel good to let companies profit off of people's desperation, but when the government meddles and tries to micromanage the economy, it very often has consequences that are unintended but far outweigh any positive. And price gouging laws are no exception. What do you think? Do you disagree with me? Let me know in the comments. And now it's time for Brad versus TikTok, my daily segment where I take on the craziest ideas from the Clock app.
Pronoun of the day is slugs.
Today, this TikToker is spreading fear porn about how Republicans are supposedly going to roll back interracial marriage. Let's take a listen and see. Maybe she's got some hardcore evidence and receipts behind her claim.
I hate being right. I hate being right. But for those of you who've been following me for a while, I called this a couple of years ago. Indiana Senator Mike Bruen said interracial marriage ruling should be left to the states, and that Loving versus Virginia in 1967 was a mistake and should not have been ruled on by the Supreme Court. They're coming after all of us. This would nullify my parents' marriage, were my father still alive. This would nullify my marriage. I am incandescent, and I am not sorry. I do not apologize for the rage. I do not apologize for any of it right now. Keep this in mind when you go to vote. Get out there and get rid of these people. They are dangerous.
You know what I think is dangerous? Spreading totally baseless fears and concerns and hysteria to huge audiences online and not doing basic research or fact-checking first. The comment section on this video is really disturbing, guys. I'll just read a few for you. Politicians need to know what real fear feels like. I think we should bring back the guillotine for them quickly. This country is f***ing disgusting. White women will continue to vote against their own best interests. Conservatives still want owning humans as property to be a state's decision. I may be wrong, but is this not a similar mindset to the Nazi mindset? Only wanting a pure race, no mixing, no gays, etc. Love just throwing gays in there. And white women who think we are safe? our right to vote, among others, is on their chopping block too. Y'all, apparently the 19th Amendment is coming next. Oh my God. It's giving delusional. It's giving out of touch with reality. Even if we took at face value this TikToker's evidence that they provide, which we actually can't do, as I'll explain, but even if we took at face value their evidence, which is a 2022 article reporting that one Republican senator from Indiana, Mike Braun, she mispronounced his name, but I can't really throw shade about mispronunciation now, can I? Even if we took at face value this notion that one Republican senator said interracial marriage should be overturned, how does that mean that it's some imminent prospect that one member of a party out of so many in the Senate and Congress and governors and presidential candidates said something, therefore it's what they all support and what is all going to happen? No, literally no one else would agree with that. And also, it's a Supreme Court decision. So what a senator thinks about it has no impact. The Supreme Court would have to overturn Loving v. Virginia, which they're not going to do. The math here is just not mathing. Republicans do support interracial marriage. This is just not a thing. And even if one senator from one state somehow didn't, that wouldn't mean that that was the whole party or that was what they were going to do. That's just not how that works. You can find one crazy member of the Democratic Party saying something all the time. Doesn't mean it's the position of the whole party or what they would all immediately do if they got power. But what's crazier is that Mike Braun clarified that that wasn't even what he meant. As reported by that right-wing website, CNN, Braun later clarified his comments, saying in a statement that he misunderstood the question. He said, earlier during a virtual press conference, I misunderstood a line of questioning that ended up being about interracial marriage. Let me be clear on that issue. There is no question the Constitution prohibits discrimination of any kind based on race. That is not something that is even up for debate, and I condemn racism in any form, at all levels, and by any states, entities, or individuals. In a brief interview on Wednesday, Braun told CNN that he does not believe interracial marriage should be determined by the states. No, Braun said. He said he wasn't paying close enough attention to the earlier line of questioning and basically was trying to talk about Roe v. Wade. So the core crux of her argument that this one Republican senator wants to overturn interracial marriage isn't even true. So there's literally zero truth to this insane fear porn narrative that she spread to hundreds of thousands of people on TikTok that has some of them in the comments fully believing it to the point of bloodlust. This is fine. Nothing to see here. This is fine. I don't know, man, but I personally think it's bad to scare people baselessly and to get them all riled up and concerned and living in a state of fear when that is not justified by the facts. I actually think that's deeply, deeply harmful, reckless, and irresponsible. It also discredits your actual critiques. I mean, a hefty chunk of the Republican Party still does oppose gay marriage. So if you wanted to debate that and go after them on that, we can have that conversation. But no one seriously disagrees with interracial marriage. There is no movement to get rid of it. There's no signs that's going to happen. That's not something any Republicans in any actual positions of power support. So this is just delusional fear porn scaring the masses needlessly. And this kind of scary rhetoric, if people actually believe it, I mean, it can prompt violence. You saw the comments I read. Now, I always believe that the responsibility for violence ultimately lies in the individual who makes that choice. So if some crazy person saw this TikTok and decided to go after Mike Braun, for example, that would be on them. It wouldn't necessarily be on this TikToker. I do firmly believe that. But still, as people with platforms, we do have a responsibility to not spread incorrect information and rile people up emotionally, rile up their emotions based on things that aren't true, in part because you never know who's listening. And there could be someone crazy who will do something drastic in response to something that you said. And that's still ultimately their choice and their responsibility. But that is why you shouldn't be reckless with your platform, like this woman so clearly was, in my view. But what do you think? Do you agree with me that this person is totally out of touch and using their platform irresponsibly? Let me know in the comments, and do hit that like button to reward my suffering through this sheer stupidity. And now I'll wrap up today's show by reading a few of your comments from yesterday's episode. I feel like things that would have been huge controversies in the 70s are just every other Tuesday in today's politics. You know, I guess I'm too young to really remember, but I think the Trump era has just been insane. And it's been so crazy that crazy feels normal. And any one of these incidents that we're constantly talking about would have been like the story of the year before. That's at least my perception, but I'm not really old enough to remember. Another person says, I couldn't be more tired of activists. My last straw was the FEMA guy trying to say how the LGBT community is affected more by Helene than straight people. Get out of here. Oh, dude, I hate when they do that. They did that with COVID. They said, COVID is having a disproportionate impact on LGBT people. And then when you look into why, it's because LGBT people, for whatever reason, are statistically more likely to smoke cigarettes, which is bad for you and it hurts your lungs, and then you're more vulnerable to COVID. So it actually had nothing to do with LGBT people, but they were still making it all like an LGBT victim narrative. It's exhausting. Another person says, good timing on your show to take my mind off things on my way to work. I'm a first responder and just started a 16.5-hour shift for this hurricane with my partner, home by herself with my pets. I'm worried about this one. We're just lucky she doesn't go in until it passes. She works at a hospital. Well, kudos to you. I really have so much respect for what you're doing, and thank you for helping your community and putting yourself in harm's way. And to all of you who are affected by the hurricane in my audience, my heart goes out to you. And anything I can do to support you guys, always feel free to let me know. Another person says, we're censoring the word drag now? Or please God, did my phone do something weird? No, there was a weird glitch in the audio. My mic must have just skipped and didn't pick up the word drag fully when I said drag queen on yesterday's show. Sometimes I do censor words for the YouTube version because they'll demonetize the video, but I didn't do that with drag. We're not at the point where I literally can't say drag. That'd be crazy, but yeah, I wanted to clarify that for you guys. All right, everybody, that's it for this episode of the Brad vs. Everyone podcast. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please do make sure to subscribe if you aren't yet. Do hit that like button before you go, and do comment with your thoughts. I do take the time to read the comments, and I pick a few to respond to in every episode. So do leave a comment, and with that, we'll talk again tomorrow.